I was kicked out as a teenager because of false rumors my own twin brother spread about me. Years later, when I had built my life from scratch and finally found success, my parents, who had abandoned me, came crawling back, demanding money. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I grew up with a twin brother. From as early as I can remember, our parents treated us like we were living on two different planets. My brother was the golden child, destined for greatness, while I was branded the family's black sheep simply because I loved sports and making friends more than burying myself in books. The favoritism was obvious and relentless. On our birthdays, he got big parties, expensive cakes, and gifts while I was more like an afterthought. He was allowed sleepovers with friends. Me, I wasn't even allowed to bring anyone home. My childhood felt like a constant reminder that I wasn't enough, that no matter what I did, I'd never measure up. The only person who truly cared for me was my grandmother. She'd sneak me my favorite chocolates, slip me a few dollars in secret, and remind me that I mattered. She was my safe space in a house where love felt conditional. As we grew older, my parents' favoritism turned into open emotional abuse. They mocked my grades, laughed at my hobbies, and refused to let me play sports, even though I was good at them, because all they wanted was for me to study like my brother. The more I tried to prove myself, the more invisible I felt. Things got worse when I was in my sophomore year. I got grounded for something so ridiculous it still makes my blood boil, having Snapchat on my phone. I wasn't doing anything wrong, I just wanted to stay connected with my friends like any normal teen. But to my parents, that was a betrayal of their trust. They trashed my room, ripped the door off its hinges, and told me I didn't deserve privacy. And my twin? Instead of standing by me, he saw my misery as an opportunity. He started lying, constantly. If something went missing, he blamed me, and our parents, who already saw me as the problem child, believed him every single time. At school, he mocked my looks and embarrassed me in front of others. What really fueled his hatred was that despite everything, I had friends. I was social, approachable, and people enjoyed being around me. He, on the other hand, struggled to connect with anyone and grew resentful of the fact that I could thrive socially while he couldn't. That resentment exploded on our 14th birthday. None of his friends showed up for him, but mine took me out for ice cream. It should have been a small, harmless thing, but to him, it was humiliation. And from that moment on, he made it his mission to destroy me. He began spreading vicious rumors at school, painting me as a spoiled, violent sister who physically abused him at home. At first, I thought no one would believe such nonsense. But then he took it further. He started punching himself, giving himself black eyes and bruises, and showing up at school with evidence. When our parents asked, he'd laugh it off, claiming he got hurt playing football. Soon, the whispers started. Friends pulled away, group invites stopped, and suddenly, I was the violent twin. My ex-best friend eventually admitted to me what was happening. My brother had been feeding everyone detailed lies. Stories so convincing that even teachers started looking at me differently. The breaking point came when the rumors reached the principal. One day, I was summoned to his office along with my brother and parents. I went in thinking maybe, just maybe, my brother would finally stop. But instead, he doubled down. He looked the principal in the eye and told him everything was true, that I bullied him, that I was jealous, that I lashed out because he got more love at home. My mom burst into tears, clinging to him like he was some kind of brave victim. My dad wrapped his arm around him, praising him for his courage. And me? I sat there in stunned silence, fighting back tears, realizing I was trapped in a nightmare where the truth didn't matter. The principal barely listened to me. He said the school didn't tolerate bullying and announced I would be suspended for 10 days. I pleaded with him, tears streaming down my face, insisting I had never laid a hand on my brother. But it didn't matter. He saw me as the monster my brother had painted me to be. The moment we left the principal's office, I knew my life had changed. My parents didn't let me speak, didn't let me defend myself, didn't even acknowledge my tears. They just dragged me out, their faces twisted with embarrassment and rage. I kept trying to plead my case, but it was like talking to a wall. When we got home, things escalated in a way I never could have imagined. My dad started yanking clothes out of my drawers and shoving them into a suitcase. I stood there frozen, confused, begging him to stop. My mom asked what he was doing. But instead of explaining, he shouted, "I can't let her live in the same house as her brother anymore." That's when the horror sank in. They weren't just angry, they were throwing me out. I dropped to my knees, clinging to my dad's legs, sobbing, begging him to stop. I turned to my twin, praying that he'd finally show a shred of guilt, that he'd tell them the truth. But he just stared at me coldly, unmoved, and then smirked. My dad shoved the packed suitcase into the foyer, his voice like ice as he said, "A bully like you doesn't deserve to live under my roof. If your grandmother wants you, she can come pick you up." In that moment, it felt like the entire world crumbled. My grandmother did come. She found me standing there surrounded by my belongings, broken and crying. Without hesitation, she gathered my things, buckled me into her car, and then she marched straight back to the door and rang the bell. When my father opened it, she unleashed her fury. She told him point blank that if he ever laid a hand on me again, or tried to contact me, she wouldn't hesitate to call the police and Child Protective Services. She wasn't bluffing either, her voice carried a kind of authority I had never seen before. My mother tried to shift the blame onto me, claiming it was all my fault. But my grandmother shut her down. For the first time in my life, someone stood up for me against my parents, and that someone was her. We drove away, leaving behind the only home I had ever known. That night, I cried until my body was empty of tears. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The pain was indescribable. But in the darkness, there was one flicker of light, my grandmother. When I told her the truth about my brother's lies, she looked me in the eye and said she believed me. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. When my suspension ended, going back to school felt like walking into a lion's den. The whispers were louder now, the stares sharper. My brother ignored me completely, acting like I didn't exist, while surrounding himself with kids who believed his lies and saw him as the victim. I tried to tell my side, but nobody wanted to hear it. I was the violent twin, the outcast. So I kept my head down. I went to class, ate lunch alone, and went straight home. Loneliness became my routine. My parents never once called to check on me. But my grandmother did. Every single day. She reminded me it wasn't my fault. That one day life would be different. And she was right. I graduated with good grades and left for college. And it was there I finally tasted freedom. No one compared me to my brother. No one hovered over my shoulder. I could breathe. And for the first time, I felt like my life was mine. In college, I discovered my love for content writing. At first, I wasn't sure it could be a real career. So I treated it as a side hustle. I signed up on freelancing sites, built a small portfolio, and slowly gained long-term clients. By the time I graduated, I realized I didn't need a corporate job. I could turn my passion into a full-time career. Becoming a freelance writer changed everything. I was financially independent. I traveled the world as a digital nomad. And with every new project, I gained confidence and healing. It wasn't easy, I saved aggressively and worked tirelessly, but it was worth it. My grandmother remained my anchor. Even after I moved out, I visited her every weekend, helped her with chores, shared meals, and spent evenings talking on the porch. She had given me a second chance at life, and I never took that for granted. Recently, I landed one of the biggest projects of my career, writing blogs and product descriptions for a huge brand. When it ended, I posted screenshots of the glowing reviews on Instagram, and the response was overwhelming. Writers congratulated me, reposted my story, and even new clients reached out. That's when things really took off. I was invited back to my old college to give a seminar on content writing. I was nervous, but I said yes. Standing in front of that audience, sharing my story, and realizing people were inspired by my journey, it felt like my life had come full circle. Clips of my talk went viral in Facebook groups, and soon after, I was invited to speak on a local news channel. I talked about freelancing, client reviews, and building opportunities. It was humbling and empowering all at once. When the show aired, I shared a few clips online. My cousins and relatives started reaching out with congratulations. And that's when word spread, because my parents, who had spent years pretending I didn't exist, finally found out about my success. I didn't think much of it at first, until my phone lit up with 6 missed calls from my mother. It had been years since she'd contacted me. Seeing her name made my stomach twist. I hesitated, but eventually, I called back. She answered immediately, her tone overly sweet, congratulating me. I could hear my dad in the background, chiming in, asking about my life. At first, I answered their questions cautiously, unsure of where this was going. And then it came. How much are you earning these days? My dad asked casually. I told him it was none of his business. He laughed and said, come on. We're family, you don't need to hide it. My mom jumped in, sighing dramatically, saying they were struggling financially, that the house needed renovations, that they had no savings left. Then came the line that made my stomach drop, your success has given us hope. My mom said, after watching your TV interview, we thought maybe you could help us out by paying for the renovations. And my dad followed up with, after all, we're family. You shouldn't hesitate to share your earnings with us. We really need your help. I couldn't believe the audacity. I stared at them, trying to wrap my head around how people who had abandoned me for years suddenly thought I owed them anything. Are you joking? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. You haven't spoken to me in years. And now you're reaching out with your hands open? I appreciate the congratulations. But I am not helping you. Not now. Not ever. My words hit like a stone. My mother immediately launched into her familiar guilt-ridden tirade. calling me ungrateful, accusing me of being cold-hearted. My father chimed in, adding that as my parents, they had a right to expect me to support them. It's the least you could do, he said, as though years of neglect and betrayal had never happened. My anger burned, but beneath it a clarity emerged. Instead of screaming, instead of giving them another chance to twist the narrative, I decided it was time to teach them a permanent lesson. If they wanted my help, they'd have to meet my demand. My father leaned forward, suspicious but curious. What demand? I didn't hesitate. You will admit, publicly, in front of family and friends, that my brother was the mastermind behind the lies that destroyed my reputation. You will tell everyone the truth, and you will humiliate him the same way you humiliated me. Only then will I even consider helping you. The silence was deafening. My father's face darkened. My mother's eyes widened in disbelief. They both tried to backpedal, suggesting private discussions, begging me to drop this unnecessary condition. But I refused. This was non-negotiable. That's when my father raised his voice, reminding me he was still my parent, still deserving of my loyalty. My mother pleaded with me to do the right thing, reminding me of all the years they had raised me. The irony nearly made me laugh. Raised me? I snapped. You kicked me out. My grandmother raised me. She fed me, clothed me, gave me a home. Don't you dare take credit for what you never did. Their faces twisted in frustration as I held firm. If they wanted me back in their lives, or my financial help, then the truth had to come out. Otherwise, I was done. Since that call, they haven't stopped ringing my phone. But I've ignored every attempt. The more I think about it, the more I regret answering them in the first place. Days later, my brother himself broke the silence. He sent me a venomous text, dripping with arrogance. Hey sis, long time no see. Honestly, life's been great without you. Mom and Dad told me about your insane ultimatum. You know they'll never do it. They never loved you, and they'll never hurt me for your sake. Yeah, I lied about you 15 years ago, but get over it. Stop being selfish. You're unmarried, childless, and you've got nothing better to do. Just pay for the repairs around the house and be a decent daughter. His words stabbed deep. The dismissiveness, the arrogance, the attempt to guilt-trip me with my marital status. It was all too much. Fueled by rage and a desperate need for justice, I sat down and wrote an email that would finally rip the mask off my family. I poured every painful detail of my childhood into it, the favoritism, the coldness, the cruel rumors that had cost me everything, and the moment they threw me away like I was nothing. I attached his message, his confession that he had lied all those years ago. Then I hit send to my parents and every relative who had ever been fooled by their charade. The fallout was instant. Relatives who once sided with my parents now turned against them. Many wrote back to me, horrified, apologizing for never stepping in. My parents and brother bombarded me with abusive texts until I finally hired a lawyer who sent them a cease and desist. Only then did the harassment stop. For the first time, I felt peace. My grandmother stood firmly at my side, telling me she was proud of me for exposing the truth. Her unwavering love was all I needed. Now, months later, my life has shifted in ways I never thought possible. My content writing business is thriving. I'm invited to speak at seminars, to appear on podcasts. People see me for who I really am, not the lie my brother crafted. I've spent precious time with my grandmother, planting flowers in her garden, sharing meals, laughing until our stomachs hurt. Those moments are priceless, etched into my heart. And finally, for the first time in years, I've begun therapy. Healing is slow, but it's happening. The past may have shaped me, but it will not define me. This is my last update, for now, because I've decided my story no longer belongs to my parents, or my brother, or the lies they spread. It belongs to me, and I'm finally free.